Hi, I'm Leanne from BatLadyHerbals, and welcome to my video. So, today my husband and I had a lot more free time than we usually do, and so we decided to go a little bit out of our typical way for a nice little hike, and happened to stumble on a plant that I have been absolutely in love with for years and have been looking for years, and I just haven't been able to find it until today. So today we are at the Ross Prairie State Forest, and hiking along the trail we happened to stumble upon a dead specimen of this plant and decided to go a little bit off trail and found these absolutely gorgeous flowers. And these flowers are often mistaken for mushrooms because they are achlorophyllc, which means that they don't have chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is what plants use to create and photosynthesize their food. So that means that this plant has to get food in a completely different way. So it is a parasite. And the fun thing is, it is a parasite of the thing that it gets confused with most often, mushrooms. This plant, you can see, has a little bit of pink in it, but most often you're going to find it white with a little bit of black around it. And towards the end of its lifespan, it gets more and more dark until it's finally completely black. Now, since it feeds on mushrooms, it tends to follow a lot of the habits of mushrooms. And the mushrooms it feeds on, family of mushrooms that tend to have a mycorrhizal association with the local tree life. Now, what a mycorrhizal association is that the mushroom and the tree share nutrients. So what the tree can't get, it gets from the mushroom. And what the mushroom can't get, it gets from the tree. However, the ghost pipe doesn't have that kind of association with the mushrooms. It is simply a parasite. And the presence of the ghost pipe means that at least the mycelium of the mushroom is present, because that's really what this plant feeds on, is the mycelium, or the root of the mushroom. Now, every part of this plant is edible in some form. And from all the people I know who have tried consuming this plant, it's fairly tasteless until it's cooked. So you can eat it raw, but it's recommended to cook it. When you cook it, it takes on the flavor of kind of like an asparagus. However, it's such a rare sight that I don't recommend over harvesting it, or even harvesting it unless you actually need it, because this is also a very powerful medicine. Now, it gets one of the common names of Indian pipe or ghost pipe from an old Cherokee legend about the beginning of the ages. We weren't jealous, we didn't have greed, we didn't have ambition. But slowly it developed in us, in humans. And there was a group of tribal leaders that saw this ambition and saw all of this develop, and saw that the fights and the arguments that it created. And they called a meeting, and in the meeting, they smoked the peace pipe while they were discussing terms before peace was established. And the spirits were very angry about this, because the peace pipe is supposed to be smoked in honor of the peace that has been established. And since they kind of jumped the gun on that, the spirits decided to turn these elders, these chiefs, into a ghostly flower, a gray flower, that resembled the pipe that they were smoking. So ghost pipe has been used traditionally in many Native American traditional medicines, but one of the most powerful medicines that it has been used for was in children who have spasms or fits that today we know as epilepsy. So this plant has properties that are antispasmodic that help to soothe those spasms. But in smaller dosages, you can also use those antispasmodic properties to help calm the nervous system and the digestive system, as well as muscle cramps. Now, traditional medicine also uses this plant to help treat eye problems. So how this was used for the eyes was whenever there were problems with the eyes, the stems would be picked from this plant and bruised, and from that would come a liquid, kind of like a juice, that would then be applied to the eyes. And this juice was also used to calm irritability, especially in children, and to help with nervousness, kind of like nervous tics and things that today we might consider to be the extreme forms of anxiety. Now, while I did talk about the plant as a whole, it of course has leaves, and the leaves were on the stem, the little white leaves as just under the flower, and those leaves have properties as well. And the leaves were used often to create a poultice to go on warts and moles and skin issues, to help to get rid of those, help to heal wounds. It was also considered a wound healing herb because it's bactericidal, which means that it's going to attack bacteria, and most specifically the bacteria that causes infections in wounds. Ghost pipe has also been traditionally used to help with toothache, and to do that you just simply chew the raw plant, the raw herb. Now, the roots were used for several of these purposes as well, but usually the roots are used to make a tincture, and the tincture also is used to help heal wounds and to fight infections. One of the things I find really interesting about this plant is that it used to be part of a separate family, but in recent changes that were done with the taxonomy of plants, they did combine the family it was part of with another family, and that family is the Ericaceae, which is the same family that you'll find blueberry in. And if we go back down to this plant, you can see the shape of the flower right there is very much like the shape of the blueberry flower. And now, like I said, this is a very rare plant to come across. There are more rare plants, some of them actually really close relatives, but it's not rare because it's endangered or because it's been over-harvested, although that is easy to do. It's rare because of the conditions that have to come about for this plant to really flower. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the flower and the leaves, the above ground part. But underneath everything, there's a root system. And that root system stays dormant until all these specific requirements are met. But it often emerges from the ground after periods where it's been dry for a very long time, and then we get a bit of moisture. So here in Florida, it's been fairly dry without rain for a couple weeks, and then a few days ago, we had a pretty darn good shower that left the ground just moist enough that this plant could come up. So thank you for joining me today. Once again, my name's Leanne from BatLadyHerbals. Now, I want to do a special thank you to this section of woods, but especially to this beautiful oak tree behind us, because he is probably the reason that this beautiful colony of ghost pipe is here. Because without this tree, we wouldn't have the mushrooms that this plant feeds on. But also, thank you to everyone who's watching. Don't forget that my channel isn't just these special plant videos. We also have some hiking videos. Feel free to browse around on that and see what you like. If you have any questions, comments, or experience with this herb, feel free to talk about that in the comments below. I also have a Patreon, so if you'd like to support this channel, feel free to find me on Patreon. The link's going to be down below, and become a patron. I also have a blog, which actually has a lot more information about this wonderful plant. I will link that down below in the description. You can also find my shop on Teespring, where you can find some awesome designs promoting hiking and herbalism in Central Florida. And also, don't forget, if you are curious about what nature has in store for you in your own backyard, I do something called backyard tours. If you want more information about those, feel free to contact me. All that information is going to be down below. And thank you again, and have a wonderful day.